Yeah, Tech Tuesday, welcome back. I love this section. I love thinking about the cutting edge of technology and how you can make businesses from it. I would probably say that this is one of the most accurate ways to make a plan about what can be successful in the future, is to examine trends and recent innovations, because that's where you can build, or it wouldn't be an innovation. One article I wanted to focus on was sort of a non-successful or yet to be successful. The article said, these engineers just solved the biggest problems with N95 masks. Well, that's not what the article eventually said. They're trying to solve it, but nobody's going to click on the article if it says they're trying to solve it. So it said they did solve it, which is a lie. However, once you read the article, you realize there's John Zhu and Frederick Prinz from Stanford, students, I think, or maybe recent graduates. They really wanted to make a better N95 mask. And so they came up with two ideas about how to do that. And I'm telling you, both of them are prototypes. They don't have anything that's working yet. They haven't solved it. And when you hear the concepts, you're going to realize perhaps they're a little bit further away than they might be expecting. The first method that they wanted to employ was the idea of water splitting. So they want to separate the oxygen from the hydrogen and bring the oxygen up to the mask, and maybe the hydrogen can be disposed of or used in another kind of way. That's not going to happen by these guys. The idea of water splitting would completely change the world in a way like discovering gasoline changed the world. It's not going to be a technology that's used for N95 masks primarily. If you can split, nuclear fission, then you're going to have, these guys would be super billionaires. And so what they wanted to do, they want to apply an electrical current to the water to try to separate the two. Well, this is about as far as the explanation in the article went, and I think it's about as far as it's going to go. Now, the second suggestion they had seems like it's a little bit more plausible, but there again, the materials cost would be very expensive most likely, because they want to use a membrane that separates negative ions from oxygen. So they take an oxygen-containing anions, which are negatively charged atoms, and then they pass it through a membrane, and they're able to isolate oxygen, which can be focused back into the mask. So what it is it's a box on the waist with a tube that goes up to the mask, and it provides a cleansing and a heightened oxygen content. What was funny about the article, though, is if you go into the comments, the very first and most popular comment of all was by a guy named Nicholas, and he says, "Hazmat operator here. It is unwise to attach an oxygen generator or oxygen candle to any kind of respirator. The Navy and Air Force have learned the hard way decades ago. A better idea is to properly train people on how to use their respirators." So in other words, just do the normal thing correctly and you won't need new gadgets and gimmicks. So, what does this tell us? Well, it tells us that these guys' efforts are most likely not going to be received by any sort of popular industry. They probably haven't done as much research into the current nature of the industry that they're trying to get involved with as they like to think. A little bit of research would have demonstrated that the military has definitely been on the trail of such technology for as long as we can remember, because they have fighter pilots in space. They want to go higher up in their airplanes. They want to reduce the cost of oxygen capacity on planes, or the ventilation system, not even for health, but for functional purposes. And there's real limitations to putting an air supply on an outside generator. So I hope these guys can do it. If they can somehow master a membrane and put a substrate through it and extract oxygen from that, there could be extreme implications for it, but that wouldn't qualify as a better N95 mask. That would qualify as an advanced breathing system, which would probably have more than just hospital room implications. As far as medical innovations go that you can build on, there's 10 from 2019 that I really wanted to use as medical innovations that demonstrate the current state of the industry. So there's a top 10, and so we start at 10 and go to 1. The first one is smart inhalers, and we talked last week about the smart devices economy, a trillion sensors economy as it's been coined by some. And it is whatever you can use, put a sensor to it, and you suddenly have a marketable device, a cutting-edge marketable device. Well, inhalers, let's say for asthmatics or people with respiration problems, not corona respiration problems, but normal ones, now you put a sensor in it, and it can monitor when you take your medicine, how much is being administered, perhaps how efficient your inhalation is or your per unit administration is. So are you breathing into it right? Like I said, are you putting proper space in between? Because if you use your inhaler properly, it's a steroid. Even though you take it and it makes you feel better immediately, it is a long-term steroid. So if you use it at a properly spaced interval based on the half-life of the medicine, you'll be in a much better situation. You probably use it less, so it's a little bit not as difficult on your system, and you'll have less instances of needing to use it. So smart technology could definitely assist in that, assist the doctors. Now, there is a danger that I wanted to mention, which is, what if your insurance company gets their hands on your usage? What if they see that, you haven't been timing your dosages appropriately, so therefore we identify that you are an increased risk patient? Well, suddenly you're paying more money every month because you've been put into a different pool of risk. So do you really want people to monitor your the specifics of your medicine use? I'm not so sure. Now, it could be, on the other hand, an incentive to get a cheaper rate if you do use your medicine properly. So it could kind of go both ways. The ninth technology for Tech Tuesday that I want to focus on is robotic surgery. We've talked about this, again, these last couple of weeks. But now, since we're talking about medicine, robotic surgery is in a situation where we've never been before. Now the question is, do we actually still want human beings involved in the process? I would argue yes. You're still going to need a sentient mind at the helm of all these different capabilities. But now one surgeon could potentially do much more precise and use things like artificial intelligence and the precision of lasers, and for instance, to know exactly how deep you're cutting. Maybe it's a combination of manual and automated processes. Maybe the automated process just takes place for a few seconds, and the surgeon has to position the device, and then the automated process can kick in, and then you take the device away. So, the line between where the conscious mind ends and the machine begins becomes blurred, but it still should. That relationship will still no doubt exist, especially with something like precision surgery. You want somebody to blame if something goes wrong. The eighth one is wireless brain sensors. Again, we've talked about this. They can put it in your brain. Now they're talking about plastics that can dissolve back into your blood system. Like a plastic hybrid. So there's your materials development. And then you also have your purpose. So you have a sensor probably already as it normally is, but the real advancement is this dissolving technology that can take place. And hopefully the sensors and the uses for the sensors are going to be improving at a steady rate as well. Probably the one technology that I was most interested in on this list as far as business ideas that I might want to participate in is 3D printing in medicine. Now they're able to custom fit your prosthetics based on your the form of your extremity. Where is your bone located? How can you find the best stability on this device? But not just with limbs and additional extremities, but also with medicine. They can now print your pills with all of the different medicines you need mixed into one pill based on what time of day you're going to take it. So you're going to be taking 3 medicines every morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 3 again in the evening. Well, you would have pills that represent each one of those that your doctor perhaps, or perhaps your pharmacy, can manufacture for you with a machine. Maybe the machine has dozens and dozens of different medicines that are licensed somehow between the pharmaceutical company and the machine provider. That would be a complicated negotiation, no doubt. But they would have the raw ingredients of the pill in some sort of different containers, perhaps maybe not the most advanced ingredients or the most cutting-edge, pills, because let's call it just for genetics. Let's not get into the licensing and the who owns what, but let's just with generic medicines. You have all the generic components available to the machine, and it makes individual pills. So that's a very interesting one. And then there's a third final application that's really taking shape, which is artificial organs. They can now print new blood vessels. They can print synthetic ovaries. They can even a new pancreas to help you where you might not have found a appropriate donor before. Maybe now, even soon, livers could be replaced through manipulated cells. Take a plant cell and manipulate it through our capabilities into more of an animal cell or more of a stem cells, of course, are already doing this. And now with stem cells, with artificial intelligence, now we can direct stem cells where they need to be more precisely. That would be a little bit different than 3D printing, but it's sort of in the same industry, of course. The fifth innovation is health wearables. We've talked about this. Your Apple Watch is a classic example because it can know so many things about the way that how healthy you are. Precision medicine, again, with technologies like CRISPR, and the different understandings that we have about how genetics are working and the way we're able to map them out. Now we can look at your genetics and more precisely tune the medical regimen or the medicine regimen that you're going to receive based on who you are very, very specifically. And it makes a difference in terms of specific ingredients or dosages, etc. Virtual reality can be used for students. Telehealth is going to be where you can talk to your doctor on webcam, or you can deal with any number of professionals on webcam. But for health, your doctor, your nurse, your pharmacist, you can deal with them over a screen, which is the obvious result that you would expect from a situation like we're in now with coronavirus. But they're expecting by 2025 that this is going to be a $100 billion industry. So this is a deeply disrupting technology in the way we do things. I'll talk about how to get involved with that in a second. But then the final number one advancement that we made last year was in CRISPR. Clustered regulatory interspaced short palindromic repeats. And this is the most advanced gene editing technology yet. It works by harnessing the natural mechanisms of the immune systems of bacterium cells, of invading viruses, which is then able to cut out infected DNA strands. That is just for fighting with, for instance, bacterias or viruses, but imagine if you could use the same technology to determine the characteristics of your children, or if people around you, specifically very wealthy people, are selecting their children's genetics precisely. And so you have this elite group of designer babies being born, and the fear is that the rest of babies won't be able to compete. Well, I doubt you're going to get such an advanced person just from this practice on the first generation. But imagine if you, for 5 or 6 generations in a row, are constantly refining these genetics. Well, you might end up with an extremely intelligent lineage, offspring, at least the best that you could possibly produce. Now, occasionally you find people in the public who are obviously the best that their parents could have produced in terms of, the jackpot, or in terms of, the way that they look, or the way that, or how smart they are. It already exists, so you just have more of those. It's not like you would get some new freak race of people. So I don't think it's something to be feared. I think it's something to be excited about, and I think we could make ourselves as a human race much stronger and more able to, fight against disease, have stronger immune systems, and more intelligent, and hopefully more kind to each other as well. So smart that we can transcend into a better society. That is something that this maybe promises. So that's enough for technology today. There's a lot of implications for the technology that we just mentioned. The one that I like the most, of course, is 3D printing. I think there's all sorts of opportunities there, not just with medical, but making advanced, even like super appendages, combining humans with robots. If you could 3D print the ligaments and joints where your hands and feet match, personalize larger macrostructures that you can control, this would be a wonderful business model. So let's step away from Tech Tuesday now. Let's go into our Strategy Now session where we're going to talk about Theranos in terms of how it could have been done properly. So we'll be right back.